Hello, and a warm welcome to our show, Love Athletics. In this program, we bring you the latest highlights from our sport with expert input from different continental areas. And we're delighted to have back as our guest Kenyan journalist Mutwiri Mutuota. Hello,
Anna,
Mutwiri.
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? It's always a
Lovely.
pleasure to be in this show and also to connect with the fans of our beautiful sport.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Great to have you again. So before we focus on the athletics news of the past fortnight, including the Boston Marathon, let's start by learning a little bit more about Mutwiri. So I've known you for many years, and we've done several Love Athletics shows already, but I never asked you how you caught the athletics bug.
Well, I caught the athletics bug, what let me just say, it was more of, it was a holiday season, just like this time of the year here in Kenya. And we had closed school, and this time I didn't have, or my mom didn't ask me to travel up country. So I was there with the TV. It was during summer in Europe, and we had the Atlanta 96 Olympics on our national broadcaster KBC. And that's when I started watching the Olympics and most interesting the track and field program. And that is when I started falling in love with the sport, because I started watching people like Vivian Rodro in the 800 meters. Of course, Nordin Moseley. We had the likes of Haile versus Tergat one, which of course left me with a lot of tears. That is when I actually knew that I actually care about this sport. And of course, people like Gail Davis, my teenage crush at the time. And it was quite a spectacle, because we as Kenyans always get used to having our athletes win in so many races and in so many events. But this is the first time I actually sat down and actually realized that these guys actually do our country proud, and of course the emotions and everything. And from then I was hooked up to today.
Brilliant. And in the course of the years since Atlanta 96, what have been your favorite athletics moments?
Oh, there are so many. There are so many, and this is a question that every time I think about it, I always have mixed and or maybe reactions or maybe feelings. But the three individual performances I can remember are Beijing 2008, Samuel Wanjiro winning the marathon gold medal in a in an Olympic record actually of 2:06:32 that stands today. The reason why this performance stands out is the fact that Kenya was coming out of one of the darkest chapters in history. We had post-election violence, and so many people were hating each other because of where they come from. And to have Wanjiro, someone who just stepped onto the scene. Yes, we had five other great Olympic champions from that year, but Wanjiro stood out because I remember everyone in the country, every house, every pub, every where you can imagine, people waited all night to watch him win the Olympic medal. And at the time when he crossed the line, there was a spontaneous outbreak of celebrations. People just rushed out of their houses very early in the morning. It was around some minutes to 7 here. So meaning people had stayed up to from around 3 to 4, and this and the way he obliterated the field, the way he did it from the front, and of course changing marathon running forever. Because since then we've seen so many other individual performances in the marathon because of the courageous running that Wanjiru did. Of course, the number two performance, thanks to you, of course. Yeah, you invited me to Berlin for the World Championships, and then I saw the man himself in the flesh, the poster boy of athletics, the speed freak, Usain Bolt of Jamaica, breaking the world record in the 100 meters, and then again going and doing the same again in the flesh. It was just amazing. At first, I thought that time stood still because he was off in a blur. Remember his pre-race rituals, his pre-race, hashing the crowd, doing the Usain Bolt, and then in a blur, it's all over. And I always feel that world record should have gone lower, but ever the showman gave everyone something that at the time we thought, okay, maybe it's a matter of time. He'll do it again and again and again. But since then, his record has not been touched, and we've had quite a collection of very good sprinters who have not done it yet. That performance happened in London 2012. This is David Rudisha breaking the world record 1:40.91, the mark that stands up to today. Why this performance is special is because I had the pleasure of interviewing him before he went to London for the Olympics, and I told him, David, look, I know that you're in world record form because he did 1:42.12 at the high altitude of Nairobi, which also I think stands as an altitude record up to today. But if you compare him running 1:42.12 in Nairobi and now going to a track that is very fast, I knew that this is a world record here. And when I asked him after the race that, are you going to break this world record? And he looked at me and he told me, you know what? I cannot say about whether I'm going to go break the record, but I told him, David, come on. You have just done 1:42, dropped 1:42.12 in Nairobi. This is any world record in any other place that is lower altitude and also in areas that are away from this part of the world where the altitude is so high. And he told me, okay, what do you want? I told him, look, I want you to give me an interview. Assuming that you have gone and broken the world record, what would you want to say? How did you put this together? And how has it put together? Because I know if you go and do it in London, getting you will be impossible. And he said, okay. And he gave me this interview, which I did a story and just left the the time slot empty. And for him to come and drop on 4091 and to name drop me when he was doing his post-race interview, absolutely amazing. And those are the three individual performances. Of course, there are countless others we can go on and on and on and on, but those three stand out.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mutwiri. The story with Rudisha is really cool. So he was quite confident. Otherwise, he would never have done this interview like he had already broken it.
Yeah, he knew. We all knew because that season he was just dropping crazy times. You know, he later on he was reflecting on it when we met some 1.5 years ago, and we were looking at the top 20 times, which he owns around 8 of them. And he was telling me at this point in my career, I was just pressing it. I was not training. I was not doing so much. So I was just in this type of form wherever I just woke up and stepped on the track, I would do our anything sub 1:42. So he was at the peak and the zenith of his sport. And to do it at the greatest stage of all, the Olympic final, no less. Just make sure that it's one of the outstanding, not performance in athletics, but in any sporting discipline ever. And to find that when the national anthem was played for him, Usain Bolt told our BBC journalist, please let me listen to this national anthem for this special performance. So it's one of the time that we thought, again, like Usain Bolt, we could go lower, but with the passage of time, we are realizing just what a barrier he put in the 800 meters that has great athletes from Wilson Kipketer, Sebastian Coe, Wantonera Danger, and so many other great 800 meters runners. And for him to put the record to almost what is untouchable up to this moment was just amazing.
Definitely. So let's focus now on what's been happening in our sport over the last fortnight, starting with road events. On the 16th of April at the Rotterdam Marathon, Belgium's Bashir Abdi, Olympic and world bronze medalist, returned to the race where he had set the European record 2 years ago and claimed another win, clocking 2 hours 03:47, just 11 seconds slower than the area record, to climb to the top of the season's list on the distance. Abdi was pushed all the way by Kenya's Timothy Kiplagat, who was rewarded with a big PB of 2:03:50, while third place went to home country's Abdi Ndageye, the Olympic silver medalist, with 2:05:32. The women's race saw Bahrain's Eunice Chumba dominate the field in 2 hours 20:31, which is the 10th best mark of the season, defeating, among others, 2017 world champion Rose Chelimo and 2012 Olympic champion Tiki Gelana. Now, Mutwiri, what is your biggest takeaway from Rotterdam Marathon?
Of course, we'll talk about what Abdi did because running a 2:03 in Rotterdam this early in the season puts him in a very good state to win a big medal, maybe in Budapest, because as Kenyans, we are worried in some sorts to see that we have other people coming into the podium. We have Belgium from. We also have even in. We are having the way we have seen our dominance being eroded in the steeplechase, and also in the marathon. This is coming as a good treat. We are seeing Abdi is there. We also have the region is there. We have the Bahrain in there. So it gives me some encouragement to know that we cannot just having Kenyans coming in and winning in. Yes, Timo the Chariot did a great race. He came from the track. Now he's transitioned to the marathon. That was a great performance, doing a 2:03, which I think is the number 2 time in the world this year. But again, Abdi's performance just shows that yes, more and more countries are mastering the marathon running craft that has been a preserve of our country and maybe the Ethiopians for quite a while now. And it's good to see other nations coming in and taking the cake in the podium. And it was watching Rotterdam itself. The times they went out and the splits were at some point we thought, okay, maybe here we are looking at something to do with a 2:02. But at the end of the day, the performance was just amazing.
Thank you, Mutwiri. And I would also like to point out how, once again, running attracts big names from other sport. 39-year-old former Dutch football star Arjen Robben ran Rotterdam for the second time, improving to a very respectable 2 hours 58:33. So congratulations to Robben. Now, the day after Rotterdam, all eyes were focusing across the Atlantic as world record holder Eliud Kipchoge raced for the first time in Boston, lining up in a very competitive field for the 127th edition of the historic race in a bid to win the first of the 2 World Marathon Majors titles that he is still missing. Kipchoge went off to a blistering start and was leading for most of the first half of the race, was still in the leading pack up to 30K, but the world record holder started to fade shortly afterwards, completing the race in 2:09:23 for his slowest marathon ever. In a meeting with the press after the race, the day after, Kipchoge told the media that he had developed an issue in his upper left leg around 30K, at the point where Tanzania's Gabriel Gai kicked and Kipchoge couldn't follow. So while it is certainly unusual to see the double Olympic champion complete a race in 6th, we must not forget that it is only his 3rd defeat in 10 years. Kipchoge came 2nd in 2013 in the Berlin Marathon, where Kenenisa Bekele set the then world record, and he was 8th in London in October 2020, bouncing back just fine to win his next 4 marathons, including the 2nd Olympic title, and breaking his own world record only last September. So I would definitely not write off Eliud Kipchoge for a rare bad race, but it is sure that in Boston, we saw who is now the pretender to the throne, and that is his compatriot, Evans Chebet. In a very competitive field, defending champion Chebet returned to win in 2 hours 05:54 for a 2nd straight victory. Only the 6th man to win back-to-back titles in Boston, and the first since Robert Cheruiyot Mwafrika back in 2008. Since autumn 2019, Chebet has won 6 of the 7 marathons he contested, including a very fast race in Valencia 2020 and a double last year in Boston and New York, showing his versatility on different courses. Chebet's training partner Benson Kipruto, the winner in Chicago last year, was 2nd in 2:06:06, and Tanzania's Gabriel Gai completed the podium with 2:05:54. Now, Mutwiri, what do you think of the men's race in Boston?
Well, there was so much to talk about and so many talking points in that race, but the biggest one of course, the GOAT, the King Choge, like we call him here, just not responding to that burst by Gay around 30K. I was watching the race, and let's say like 2 miles before that, or almost 3 kilometers before that, you could see his fluid running style was not the way it was. You could see as if he's put something. And then at that time, we were concerned it's the weather, maybe because it was raining and it was very chilly and windy. And we thought maybe this will come as a factor. But then again, when Gay pulled out and pulled off at that move on a hill, and Kipchoge could not respond, we just started seeing him receding. And one thing I admire about Kipchoge is the fact that, yes, he could have opted to drop out, because when we talk about earnings from that point, there is appearance fee and all that, he would have opted to drop out and maybe save himself for another race. But ever the gritty competitor he is, he managed to get to the finish line and get to see the people in Boydon Street just cheering him, even if he was sick. That is why he came here. That is why he came to perform. But looking at the race, the way it developed from then on, it became a very tactical affair. And I would want to say that congratulations to your friend Claudio Berardelli, having two athletes in the top three. That is Kipruto and the winner, of course, Korir Chebet. Having them and the fact that the way they celebrated in the finishing line, you could see what it meant to them. It was not a good time to talk about when it comes to Geoffrey Mutai's 202, but at 206 with the harsh conditions that we saw on that day, their performance was just the performance was just great. They had to team up at some point to nullify the threat of Gay, because Gay was not being dropped, no matter how much they tried, until when they first of all teamed to drop Gay, then they went now for the podium, and at the end of the day, Gay managed to sandwich the Kenyans. And what a great performance for him. We have a very good East Africa rivalry between us and Tanzania in terms of social media and all that. And most of us could not fathom a Tanzanian beating a Kenyan in a marathon, what we would have had for the last few days. But then again, when you look at that race too, there were other great names in there, and to see them coming home, maybe in the top 10, it was such one of the great races. It actually reminded me of the 2012 Boston Marathon when Wesley Korir came from nowhere to win because the weather was just so bad. So it was a race that was not won more on the pure talent and pure speed and pure anything. It was won more like grit and craft. It was like a chess. It was a chess marathon running. It was like a chess game that was going on. First of all, Kipchoge makes his move, then Gay, then we had the Chebet, first of all, looking as if he's trading back, then Kipruto taking over, then Gay coming in front, then the two Kenyans working to beat the Tanzanian at the end of the day. And that when it came to the final sprint to the podium, Chebet was gone, and then it was Gay coming in and Kipruto that. So it was one of those nail-biting races, the kind of races you don't like watching often, because you don't want to have in a situation where you can get some condition watching something and the tension and all that. By the end of the day, it was such a great spectacle of a race.
Thank you, Mutwiri. And what do you think Eliud will do next?
Well, there's so much in the air. First of all, I know him personally as a person. Yes, people are saying Father Time has caught up with him. There was such a huge debate online here. People saying at 39, maybe his best days are behind him. But others were reminding them, look, this guy who broke a world record 6 months ago. So we have this idea of, we have this thing that every time he steps on the marathon course, we expect a big W and history. I once observed somewhere that Kipchoge stopped running for wins. He just runs to make history, which is the difference. That's why he keeps on winning and winning and winning. He sets himself barriers that he wants to break. So I know that maybe if his condition and his body allows, he wants to come to Boston and finish what he started. That is one thing. But we have the whole season to come. We have talked about running in the 6 majors and winning all of them. Okay, major number 5 did not work out. We have New York coming down in the fall of the season, and of course we don't expect him to show up for the World Championship in Budapest. But his ultimate aim, and what he has said for the last 2 or 3 years, is coming and returning as a 3-time Olympic champion. That will set him above the grades of Abebe Bikila and so on and so forth. So we cannot write him off yet. And he's one person who he was not looking happy at the end of the race because he's the consummate competitor. And now, having had a setback, only losing his third marathon in 18, it means that he will go back, he will be back. So at least we are not writing him off yet. The only thing is that we just wait to see where he pops up next. But for now, the options are perhaps New York in the fall and Paris next year, and of course somewhere in there we can slot in another Boston just to make sure that this was a bad day in the office for him.
I'm definitely not writing off Eliud Kipchoge.
No, we can't do that. Not yet.
What do you think Evans Chebet can go on to achieve?
Well, Evans Chebet, someone noted somewhere that the American soil likes him. You know, he's on twice in Boston. He's on in New York. So we expect to see him maybe being the figurehead of the Kenyan team to the Budapest in summer. Claudio, his coach, has always been passionate to have his athletes compete for their nation and to win medals for the national flag. He has had a collection of world champions and Olympic champions all the way from the days of Janet Jepkoskei coming to today. So maybe we can see him being the figurehead of Kenyan team to Budapest in the immediate short term. If that doesn't happen, then we cannot rule out another title defense in New York, which would make him in a very select group of people who have won back-to-back Boston's and New York marathons, two of the courses that are usually known as tough courses in the marathon running. So that is what I expect of him once the parting goes down from his latest speech.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Let's look now at the women's race. Track and cross-country star Hellen Obiri had had a rather low-key debut last November in New York, finishing sixth, but her second race was a very different affair, and she is now a World Marathon Majors champion. Obiri was up against a very strong field, including Ethiopians Gotitom Gebreselassie and Amane Beriso, who last year respectively won the World Championships and a super fast Valencia race, plus Kenya's 2021 London winner Goslin Jepkoskei and Israel's 2020 Tokyo winner Lona Salpeter. The ladies went out more conservatively, and by the last mile, 4 ladies were still in contention: Obiri, Beriso, Salpeter, and Ethiopia's Ababel Yeshane, who had picked herself up from a fall 2 miles earlier. Obiri made the most of her track speed to make a long drive to the finish, winning in 2:21:38 over Beriso, 2:21:50, and Salpeter, 2:21:57. Now, Mutwiri, that was pretty impressive running by Hellen Obiri. What do you think she has in store for us now that she has clearly mastered the distance?
Well, after all the dust died down with Eliud Kipchoge fading out in the men's race, the tactical battle between the two Kenyans and the Tanzanians in the men's race, we already switched very quickly. And I remember posting on social media, what if Obiri would win this race? Because no one talked about her. Yes, of course, we know her pedigree, that is in no doubt, but the marathon is not exactly the race where you any past reputations or the previous is come into play, especially if you're just graduating from track, being the second race. And one thing about her performance was, throughout the years, from the first time we saw her in Berlin, when she won a bronze medal and she celebrated more than the gold medal winner, to today, she has that fighting spirit that embodies the likes of Paula Radcliffe, the athletes of old like Derato Tulu, people who have the talent, yes, but they have more grit and the stamina and knowing exactly when to strike. And the most sensational thing about her victory was she actually did not want to run in Boston. She had to be convinced by her coach and her management that, come and run in Boston. She was like, no, I don't feel like doing it, So she came there, and then somewhere when she realized she was within the mix with around the final 5 kilometers to go, that is where her track pedigree kicked in. So to find an athlete who has gone so long and in such a distance, you're very new to the distance, it's your second marathon. At that time, your body is aching in parts you don't even think existed. And then you have the presence of mind to realize, oh, I can use my track speed here to motor to the finish. That was incredible. We have run almost of superlatives to describe that performance. Maybe she may not win another major as far as we are concerned, but that will always stand out in her CV. As one of my friends noted, is that she has a knack of just making history. She will come here and win your Olympic gold medal and don't respect it. She will go to the World Cross and do brilliant things. She will run into the 1-2, doing history. So she racks up pretty impressive performances that just slightly slip under the radar. And that is what makes her a beautiful athlete, especially the way she celebrates her achievement. It is so heartwarming to see her and the daughter, the husband, the coach, her looking at the wreath that was being placed on her head and almost, popping it out. She's just one of those athletes that you want nice things to happen to them. And she's genuinely a nice person. So congratulations to her. And I'm sure it's going to be one of her impressive career records that she has set, winning award marathon majors on your second appearance. It's not happened to so many people. I may have to go back, but I don't think it has happened to so many athletes. Some of them with even greater pedigree than she does when it comes to talent, when it comes to medals and all that. But she has this knack of just hanging in there, and when the opportunity is right and when the time is right, she strikes gold. And that's why so many of us like about her. And the purists in the sport want to see such an athlete going on to win many things.
I totally agree. Huge respect and appreciation for Helen Obiri. Now, as we look at the great marathon runners, it's important to remember the pioneers who helped make this possible. In 1967, Catherine Switzer was the first lady to officially enter the Boston Marathon in an age where amazing prejudice still existed about the effects that running could supposedly have on female runners. The rules in Boston did not explicitly forbid women running, and no one prevented her from taking the start. But several race officials did try to stop her around the 6th kilometer and tear off her bib. Switzer managed to finish the race, but was later suspended by the AAU, the US governing body, as their rules forbade women competing in road races. Switzer continued to push for women's running rights, and 5 years later, in 1972, Boston Marathon finally officially opened to female runners. It took another 11 years before the women's marathon was introduced at the World Championships in Helsinki 83, and 12 years till it was in the Olympic program in Los Angeles 1984. Now, Mutwiri, female runners have since proven that women are perfectly capable of running marathons, and many of the long distance stars are from your country.
Yeah, look at it. We've had quite a constellation of them with the Catherine but the likes of Edna Kiplagat. We now have Vivian Cheriot also winning a London Marathon. We have the likes of Erin Obiri and other great Bridget Koskei, Ruth Chengepich, and so many other people. In fact, a very interesting statistic. When you look at recent performances in the marathons, especially the world majors, and then if you complete now the world championships and the Olympics into the loop of the majors victories, actually Kenyan women have delivered more when you look in the last 5 years or so. And this also extends into the medals that are earned from when we compete at the Olympics or the last world championships. I don't know the exact figures, but the women have won more. So yes, women are quite capable, and it's amazing to actually. It's not amazing. It's unbelievable to imagine that as it's not that far in 1967, we had women being punished for running a marathon, where people thought that they can't reach this barrier. It just shows that how the world has evolved in the last 6 decades or so. And to be honest with you, nowadays watching women marathon races, I think the field is more evenly spread out than the men, because you'll find like what we witnessed on Monday and also in Rotterdam, they were the biggest group of the leading pack compared as to men, because at this time you could see they were if you go to the last 5, 6, 7 kilometers of the race, In the men's race, we had like now in the Boston, we had 3, Rotterdam, we had 4. When you look
Yeah,
at the women races in Rotterdam and Boston, we had, I think, 5. And this one, even the commentators were saying the Boston, we had about 7 people who could go out there and win, the like of Evans, Obiri, and all. So it means that the competitive edge in the women's marathon is better than that of men. And while we expect star names to blitz the course in the men's races, the women's races, anyone can win. Will
yeah,
it be good? Will it be an American? Will it be an Ethiopian? A Kenyan? So even watching, we were saying even among the friends we were watching with Boston that the women's race had more malaria than the men's because at least now once Kipchoge dropped out and you saw the 3 of them go out, you were like, okay, here are the medals. But for the women's race, until maybe the final, maybe 3 or 4 kilometers, you never knew exactly who was going to win.
exactly.
And so having the women in the marathon and also in other races that were considered beyond them has actually made the sport much, much better and more interesting to watch. And of course, we've had more female stars coming in the many, many years and making a greater impact in the lives of those around them because, first of all, you consider their mothers too. So you will find that having women running in the marathon has been one of the things that has actually endeared the sport more than when it was just a men's event only.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Let's move now to another aspect of road races, race walks. Good performances were registered in Taizang at the Chinese race walking Grand Prix on 8 and 9 April, especially in the men's 20-kilometer race, where China's Zhang Jun clocked a PB of 1 hour 17:13.8 for an early world lead. In the women's race, China's quadruple 20K world champion and multiple Olympic medalist Liu Hong took victory in 1:28.49. A week later, just 3 weeks after setting an Asian record over 35K on her debut at the distance in Dudinse, Liu Hong went on to improve that continental best by almost a minute and a half, clocking 2 hours 38:42, while competing as a guest at the Japanese 35K championships in Wajima on 16 April. But it's time now to move off the roads and on to stadium events. There were fireworks in the sprints at several US meets over the last 2 weeks. World 100-meter six-placer Aliyah Hobbs, following an excellent indoor season, which saw her set the 60 meters area record in February, clocked 10:87 in her outdoor debut over 100 meters in Baton Rouge on 8 April, despite having had to recover from a broken bone in her hand in that indoor record effort. On the same day in Miramar, Florida, there were remarkable sprint results, albeit mostly windy. Sha'Carri Richardson was impressive. First clocking 10.75 in the heats with a 2.8 favorable wind, and then an excellent 10.57 with a plus 4.1 wind. And as Jonathan Galt pointed out in his tweet, she even started celebrating before the finish line, which certainly slowed her down. The mark makes Richardson the third best athlete of all time in all conditions, and even when adjusted for the favorable wind, it remains a remarkable performance. So it'll be interesting to see Sha'Carri Richardson competing against six-time world champion Leanne Fraser-Price in Gaborone, Botswana on 29 April. On the men's side, in Miramar, the best mark came from Jamaica's Oblique Seville, who clocked a regular 9.95 in the 100-meter heats, following it up with a windy 9.91 with 2.2 wind in the final. The following weekend saw more great sprinting. St. Lucia's Julian Alfred, one of the protagonists of the indoor season, picked up from where she had left off by setting more national records. Competing in Gainesville, she first clocked a regular 21:91 over 200 meters before running a windy 10.72 with a plus 2.4 wind in the shorter sprint to become the 11th fastest sprinter of all time in all conditions. Another athlete who had impressed in the indoor circuit was Tarsis Gracious Orogot, who had had excellent performances over 200, and the Ugandan continued to shine, clocking in Gainesville an excellent, albeit windy, mark of 19.60 with a 2.9 positive wind. The following day, the spotlight was on the Bahamas' Terence Jones, who clocked a regular world-leading 9.91. And at Mount SAC Relays, Olympic 400-meter hurdle silver medalist Rai Benjamin ran an excellent 47.74 in his specialist event a week after he had clocked 44.21 on the flat, the second best mark of the season. 2 area records were set on the same weekend at the Oklahoma Throws Series in Ramona, both in the discus throw. Samoa's Alex Rose, who was 8th at the World Championships last summer, first threw a world-leading 69.41 meters on 15 July to improve the Oceania record by 1 meter 21, and the next day, Rose further bettered the mark to throw 70.39. So excellent world-class result. In the women's event, Nigeria's Choma Onyekwere heaved her implement to 64 meters 96, improving the African record by 9 centimeters. And of course, a week earlier, the USA's Valerie Allman, the Tokyo Olympics discus throw champion, had thrown an excellent 70 meters 25 in San Diego, the third best mark of her career, for another excellent early part of the season. But let's look now at the performances by junior athletes. At the 50th Carifta Games, which took place in Nassau, Bahamas from 8 to 10 April, after 3 days of competitions in the under 17 and under 20 categories, Jamaica topped the medal standings for the 37th time in a row, followed by hosts Bahamas and the other regional powerhouse, Trinidad and Tobago. 13 countries overall won gold medals, and 21 countries won at least one medal. Individual doubles were achieved by 2 female athletes. The Virgin Islands' Michelle Smith, 2 months away from turning 17, repeated the rare combination of titles in the 400-meter hurdles and 800 meters in the under 20 category, a feat she had already achieved last year as an under 17 athlete, adding silver there in the 100 hurdles for good measure. At last year's under 20 championships in Cali, Smith was 5th over 400 hurdles at age 16, and her mark of 57.69 at Carifta 2023 is not far from her PB of 57.48, which she had set in Colombia. The other athlete to win double gold was the host country's Jamia Nabi, who won the girls under 17 sprint double to the delight of the home fans, setting PBs at both distances. There were mixed fortunes for 2 barrier-breaking Jamaican stars who had recently shone at the boys and girls championships. Alana Reid won the under 20 100 meters in 11.17, then pulled out of the 200-meter heats, while male sprinter Boajin Krume was injured while leading his race in the 100-meter heats. And elsewhere, 2 excellent performances were achieved by young athletes in the last fortnight. On 8 April in Coral Gables, the US, sprinter Isam Asinga ran an excellent 20.11 to climb to number 10 in the all-time under 20 lists. Asinga had already attracted the attention of international at the National Indoor High School meet in Boston on 11 and 12 March, first equaling the US high school record at 60 meters with 6.57, then breaking another one the next day with an excellent 20.48 over 200. Now, World Athletics lists his nationality as USA, but his college, Monteverde Academy, gives his hometown as Lusaka, Zambia. So I asked top Africa expert Carol Fuchs if she could help clarify this, and she told me apparently he has triple citizenship, USA, Zambia, and Suriname. She pointed me to a DISTAT article from last month, which says Issam was born in Georgia and both parents were athletes. Father Tommy Asinga was a middle distance runner representing Suriname at the 1988, 92, and 96 Olympics, while mother Ngozi Nwanyambaya Asinga was a sprinter who represented Zambia at the 92 and 96 Olympics. In any case, it looks like Issam is definitely an athlete we need to keep an eye on. And on 16 April, in the course of the Australia Junior Championships in Brisbane, 16-year-old Delta Amidzovsky clocked 13:02 in the 100-meter hurdles, breaking the Australia under-18 record held by the great Sally Pearson and moving up to number 7 in the under-18 all-time lists. Now, Mutwiri, interesting, isn't it, to see young sprinters of African origin now coming from countries outside traditional speedster powerhouses, Nigeria and Ghana. So Uganda's Tarsi Sorogot, Liberia's Joseph Fanbule, though he wasn't quite as performant this year, and now Issam Asinga.
Well, this is fun. It's great. Even us here in Kenya, for example, to add to the names you've mentioned, we also have Samuel Imeta, who is coming in and chasing Omanyala, the Africa record holder, in where they've been running in South Africa. They have done the 1-2 in the last 2 races. So at least this part of the world, especially in East Africa, they have started embracing sprints because most of their efforts were focused on distance running. So to have people like Orogot and Fanbule coming in and Asinga coming into the fray, it makes just for a very interesting track season ahead, and also in the run-up the World Championship, because not only are these fellows or these sprinters challenging the established Africa order, they're even causing waves in the global athletics. We've seen people like Omanyala running 977. Orogot has done a brilliant time in 200. So we expect that also the sprints are going to get new entrants, and that can only mean we'll have a very interesting season to look up to, especially if these sprinters come up and challenge what has been an established order. In fact, the other day we commissioned a story from Nigeria asking what is happening to the sprinters, because when you look at Tobia Musan, she's Nigerian, yes, but she doesn't train in Nigeria. We're looking at why aren't we having the kind of people, the day they had people like Orosoji Fasuba, we had people like Brexin Okabaren, and so many other sprinters of repeat from that. And they said that what is happening in that part of the world today, and even Ghana as well, we had commissioned a story from Accra, is authorities there are not investing as much as they did, especially when most of the people now from the diaspora, people who have the citizenship, Ghanaian citizenship, Nigerian citizenship, training in the US or doing scholarship in the US, that made them feel, okay, now we have a few guys who can run faster out there. Let us not focus on what is happening at home. But when now it's happening in the other part of Africa now, Kenya, Uganda, Liberia, okay, that's not in East Africa, but what's happening in the rest part of the Africa, they have said, okay, we have talent that we can nurture here in sprints. And where, for example, here in this country, there's a very big focus now on the sprints and having guys training and having them competing in regular meetings. When I started covering the sport, we could have 2 or 3 meetings where we had the sprints coming in just maybe to pepper the cracks. And those were the national championships, the trials, and maybe one other meet there. But nowadays we have a full sprints program in all the 7 meetings that are being organized so far. So far, the athletics track and field is have gone up to 5th meets. We have had a whole sprints program, and I mean this including even the hurdles. So it's not a surprise that the same is happening in Uganda. Even in Tanzania, it's happening. It's only that they are not coming, but I expect to see 1 or 2 of them come up in the next 2 years. So this part of the world, and especially the rest of Africa, have started taking sprints seriously more than ever before.
That's interesting. And speaking about young African talent, we are going to talk about the Kenya trials for the African under 18 and under 20 championships, which took place in Nairobi on 7 and 8 April. Now, Mutwiri, can you tell us what were the highlights and who are the top Kenyan athletes we should look out for at the continental event in Zambia from 29 April to 3 May?
Well, we have quite a few stars from Cali, Colombia, who did in Cali, Colombia last year, who are going to Zambia. And we have people like Nancy Cherop, and we have people like Diana Cherotich, who also making their tickets because having been postponed, there was such huge competition to make the Kenyan team, and that is why they named an expanded team of 50. This is their mission is simple. We are going there, first of all, to retake or to recapture the under 20 crown from South Africa and to retain the under 18 crown. So that is why they had 50 athletes. And for 2 days, some of the times that were being done at Nyayo Stadium was so close that they could even qualify for the senior world championships. And we are expecting to see such a talented Kenyan team going on, knowing that this event had been postponed because of the global pandemic, obviously. So we are going to see a Kenyan team that has got so many hopefuls who are now going to start making their names, because this is at the level where some of the biggest names in this country have made their mark. People like Vivian Cheruiyot, people like David Rudisha, people like Ezekiel Kemboy, people like Janet Jepkoskei, and so many others, Mercy Cherono, Faith Chemgetich. All of them started at the Africa under 17 or the under 18 or the youth or the junior, as it was called, and now that's been named as under 20 and under 18. So we expect to see very big names and being born at this in Zambia, and it's going to be quite a headline-making team, this Kenya saying that they have selected.
And Mutwiri, I saw there are several younger siblings of top Kenyan stars in the Kenya team for Zambia. Tell us about some of the most interesting ones.
Well, by now we have known who Ferdinand Omanyala is, the African and the Commonwealth champion, the Africa record holder, the 8th fastest runner of all time. And then we have his brother, Isaac Omuro, coming through also to win the trials and to go to Zambia. Omuro is not exactly a new name because he represented the country in the East Africa championships that were held sometime in February, and he came on with the gold medal. But his performance in Nyayo Stadium had everyone talking about how he's going to emulate his brother. And his brother was there to congratulate him. Probably the reason why we've never heard of him until earlier this year is because he was an O-level student at one of the biggest schools in Kenya, Alliance High School, and he passed so well. So he had been doing his books, but now in the gap year before he goes to university, here he is coming in and to represent his country. And he has promised, I saw him speak to Capital FM and saying that he'll break all the records his brother has set. And of course, we all know about the Koskei name because courtesy of Bridget, the world record holder. Now we have the sister, Pamela Koskei, coming in also to grab a ticket in the Kenyan team and also set about trying to win the 3,000 meter girls race. And she's saying that actually some of the coaches are saying, watch out for her. Maybe she's much better than the sister. Okay, the jury is still out there. But people with the knowledge have been saying that she's actually more talented than the sister. So that's another interesting prospect. We also have Edward Serem, the brother to Colombia, Cali gold medalist. So we have these siblings coming in and trying to emulate their more renowned siblings, and that is why this Kenyan team is going to be very interesting because already the 3 of them have cast a spotlight on the team. and it's going to see how they progress on from here, because they have been rated to winners. There are also others who are cousin brothers, others who are, the kind of, they're close relatives, but they're not exactly siblings, but there are about 8, if I'm not mistaken, of people who have medaled at the African level, the Commonwealth level, and the World Championship. So it seems now what used to be uh, a discipline where you could find out of 7 brothers and sisters, or maybe 4, 5, 6, we only have one star athlete. Now we're having 2 or 3 or 4, because the bag is spreading around and becoming a family affair. So it's going to be interesting to monitor how those 3, Serem and Koskei, and of course Omurwa, perform in Zambia. I understand it has been moved to Ndola, not Lusaka as earlier advertised. So it's going to be interesting to see how they perform there when they now measure up with the kind of competition their more famous siblings have been accustomed to.
Thank you, Mutwiri. Let's check now the best marks of the past fortnight, starting with the men's events. So top performances came, as we saw, from the Rotterdam Marathon and the US sprint meets. So we have Terence Jones with his regular 991. The fastest, however, is a windy 9.87 by Cravant Charleston of the US at Mount SAC Relays, and Oblique Sevilla's 991 windy in Miramar. Over 200, the regular marks, the fastest ones are 20 flat by Christian Coleman, who beat Letsile Tebogo by 3,000 of a second. But as we saw, we have a very, very fast 19.60 by Tarsius Orogot, who was followed to the finish line by Robert Gregory in 19.78. Over 400 flat, Rai Benjamin is now second to Wade van Niekerk on the seasons list. Marathon, we saw Bashir Abdi and Timothy Kiplagat. Over 110 hurdles, very good performance by Grant Holloway in Gainesville, 13:02, followed to the finish line by Rashid Broadbell of Jamaica, 13.12. And over the hurdles, Rai Benjamin's 47.74. In the discus throw, the 2 area records by Alex Rose. And in the javelin, very good 88.38 by Czech Republic's Jakub Vladlech. Over the 20 kilometers race walk, Zhang Yun, and over the 35, Tomoshiro Ikoda in 23:13 at the Japanese Championships in Wajima. Top performance among the men remains the 10K effort by Berihu Aregawi in March in Laredo, where he clocked 26:33. So let's check now the best outdoor marks for the women. Again, excellent performances in the sprints. Alia Hobbs, regular 10.87, and 3 windy performances by Shakari Richardson and Julian Alfred, with Julian Alfred also having a regular 21.91 over 200 meters. Britton Wilson, who had stunned with her indoor 400 meters, moved to the top of the world list in her outdoor debut. And she also moved to the top of the world list in her specialist event, the hurdles, with 53.23. Discus, as we saw, Valerie Allman, and in the 35-kilometer race walk, Liu Hong setting another continental record. Top women performances of 2023 remain Yalenzer Fiehuala's excellent 29.19 over 10 kilometers, and Rosemary's Wanjiro's performance at the Tokyo Marathon. Now, Mutwiri, we're already nearing the end of April. Indoor and cross seasons are over. Outdoor events are picking up. Diamond League starting very soon. What athletes and events are you most looking forward to in the rest of 2023?
Well, as a Kenyan, you'd expect I would be more inclined to the middle and short, middle to the long distance races. But this year, it's very, what I'm looking forward to see is we live in a Mondo's world, right? So I want to see how far he can vote that he hasn't done so far. So I want to see how far he can take the barrier this season, in the outdoor season, knowing there's the outdoor championships around the corner, which will of course be the icing of the cake of the track and field season. Sydney McLaughlin, last year she was amazing in the 400 meters hurdles. I just want to see, can she push it? Can she push it even further? Tobia Musan, of course, had another brilliant year in the 110-meter hurdles. So one of her world record, of course, was struck off because of wind assisted rules. So can she come back now and now confirm or reaffirm that yes, what I did last year was not flash in the pan? And of course, we're talking about field events like javelin. There is quite a very good competition brewing in there between the Czechs and the Poles. So it's going to be very interesting to see how or who comes on top in Budapest. And last but not least, we have Shakari Richardson, Sherry Ann Fraser Price. They are meeting in Botswana. Sherry Ann has already said she's coming to Nairobi very soon, where she dropped 10.67, the exact winning time in the World Championships last year in Oregon. So, what will the two athletes do when they are at the peak of the powers? Of course, one of them is the grandma or the grandmom of the pocket mom of the 100 meters. And Shakari Richardson, after a few bumpy years here, she's back to her best. So we are going to those two. What is going to happen between them is going to be very, very interesting. Of course, I would want to see whether Kali, the only man who has medaled in 400 meters, 200 meters, and now 100-meter world champion, what he can do for this season. Yeah, he's been rather quiet, and of course, whether to see Marcel Jacobs, the Olympic champion, whether he can come in after a nightmare of season of injuries. And of course, when he came in, he fell ill. We want to see whether the other day he posted something about when it matters, this happened, a picture of him winning the Olympic gold. So I want to see whether he can come back and now mix it up with the best. So it's going to be an interesting season ahead, and we'll be here to enjoy the ride.
I think it looks like it's going to be a fantastic season. So definitely looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And now I'd like to highlight some cool athletics news. On the 10th of April, United States Olympic and Paralympic Foundation announced the recipients of the Team USA Community Champions for 2022. The awards, presented by the US Olympic and Paralympic Foundation in partnership with the Olympic and Paralympic Committee and the sponsor Comcast, were created to honor athletes who embody the Olympic values of excellence, respect, and friendship, and make a positive impact on their communities. And two of the four recipients are from our sport. One is Billy Mills, the 1964 Olympic 10,000 meter champion. Mills was honored for his work in encouraging Native American communities for more than 30 years. He co-founded Running Strong for American Indian Youth to meet the critical needs of Native communities, foster cultural identity development, and support Native youth to pursue their dreams. Another recipient was middle distance runner Mary Kane, the World Junior 3,000 meters gold medalist in 2014, considered one of the most talented athletes in her generation. Following her experience of emotional abuse while training with Alberto Salazar's Nike Oregon project, Kane was the first to denounce the culture there in a video opinion piece for the New York Times in November 2019, which led to numerous other accounts emerging. The Argon Project had been disbanded a month earlier after the US doping agency investigations led to a 4-year doping ban for Salazar. In January 2020, Salazar was temporarily banned by the United States Center for Safe Sport following an investigation into allegations of emotional and sexual misconduct, and he was permanently banned in July 2021, losing an appeal 6 months later. Kane went on to found Atalanta NYC, a New York City-based nonprofit organization that employs pro-female runners to mentor younger female athletes, helping to make sport a safer, more supportive place for them and creating healthy and lasting relationships with the sport. The former child prodigy has, however, left athletics in early 2020 after struggling with eating disorders, stress fractures, and hip surgery, and tried triathlon in 2022. So congratulations to Billy Mills and Mary Kane. More sad news, unfortunately, as several protagonists of the world of athletics have left us. On 9 April, Africa lost one of its top sprint coaches as Ivorian coach Anthony Kofi passed away following a months-long illness. From 2003 to 2017, Anthony Kofi was coach, then technical director for the IAAF High Performance Training Center in Dakar, where he coached the likes of Amantle Moncho, the world champion over 400 meters in 2011 and silver in 2013, Marie-Josée Talou, who first showed her talent with fourth places over both 100 and 200 at the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro. Then the next year at the London World Championships, she upgraded to 2 silver medals in both sprints. She was an indoor 60-meter silver medalist, a 2019 World Championship bronze medalist. So Talou was a bit disappointed with her performance at the Tokyo Olympics, where she was 4th over 100 and 5th over the longer distance. Kofi also coached Arthur Cissé, medalist at the Francophone Games and All Africa Games and a finalist in the last World Indoor Championships. At the HPTC, he also worked with Isaac Makwala, Gina Bass, Adama Jamet, and Matthew Gnangdingo. In 2018, after coach Kofi returned to Abidjan, he created Ivoire Speed Center, where he continued to coach Talou until the end of 2021 and Arthur Cissé. He was also General Secretary of the Coaches Association from 2007. Repose en paix, Coach Anthony. On 12 April, another top coach, German Wolfgang Ritzdorf, passed away aged 68. Ritzdorf was the former national coach of the women's high jump in Germany and worked, among others, with double Olympic gold medalist Ulrike Meifert and Heike Henkel, who was a gold medalist at both the Olympics and the World Championships. He was director of the former World High Jump Center in Cologne and helped create the IAAF Coaches Education Certification System. Ritzdorf was also personal coach to 9 Olympic and World Championship high jumpers starting from 2007. Rest in peace, Wolfgang. On 17 April, Hungarian hammer thrower Lazar Lovas passed away aged 81. Lovas had placed 6th at 2 European Championships, first in 1966 on home soil in Budapest, and then again in 1969. But his breakthrough year was 1968, when he first broke the 68-meter barrier and achieved his major success at the Olympic Games in Mexico City. He there improved to 68.96 in qualifying, and again to 69.78 in the final to take bronze. Rest in peace, Lazar Lovash. Let's look now at upcoming events as we reach the end of our show. On 23 April, we have the London Marathon, and also in race walking, the Korzeniowski Cup in Warsaw. From 26 to 29 April, Drake Relays, and from 28 to 29, Penn Relays. As we saw on 29th April, Botswana Golden Grand Prix in Gaborone with some really interesting lineup. 29 to 30 April, World Combined Events Tour Garda Stars in Desenzano. On 29 April to 30 May, African Under 18 and Under 20 Championships in Ndola, Zambia. And on the 5th of May, already the first Diamond League meeting in Doha. Exciting weeks ahead, aren't they, Mutwiri?
Yeah, it's going to be quite a festival of athletics coming up with an London Marathon, with the Botswana meet, and of course, the start of the Diamond League, where we are going to see the early markers late in the season. So it's a next. There's a lot to look forward to, and we are expecting to see some of the headline-making acts happen here, and of course, we'll have a glimpse into the future when we have the Africa Athletics Championships for the under 18 and under 20 in Dollar. So we have a lot to look forward to, and we expect to see especially early markers being laid now as we can start now the countdown to Budapest now with the official start of the track and field season.
Thank you, Mutwiri. So we're now at the end of our program. It was great having Mutwiri with us on the show. Thank you all for watching, and see you in 2 weeks on Love Athletics to look together at the highlights, comments, and analysis of what's been happening in our sport over the past fortnight. Ciao, Mutwiri. Bye, everyone.
Ciao. Hi, everyone.